What would you do if you woke up one morning and the person staring back at you in the mirror was the most beautiful girl you had ever seen in your entire life? What if that girl was you? Our story begins with a guy named Xiao Feng, a second-year student at Huada University, average in almost every way that counts. He had just done something brave, or maybe something stupid, depending on how you look at it. He had broken up with Su Bingyan, Huada's campus beauty queen, the girl every guy on campus would have traded a kidney to date. As Xiao Feng had walked away from all of that night, his 3 roommates dragged him to the bar to drink his sorrows into oblivion. By 10 in the evening, all 4 of them were half carrying him back to the dormitory. He collapsed into bed and passed out cold, the kind of sleep that swallows you whole. And somewhere in that darkness, a dream found him. He was standing in a pure white void, endless in every direction. With no walls and no floor, he could feel beneath his feet. Then she appeared. A girl so breathtakingly beautiful that the word beautiful felt insufficient just looking at her. Red lips barely parted, eyes that seemed to hold entire worlds inside them, and a smile that curved upward like she already knew everything. She asked him one question. "Do you think I'm pretty?" Xiao Feng answered without a single moment of hesitation. "Incredibly pretty." She stepped forward and asked a second question, quieter this time, more deliberate. "If you were a girl, would you want to look like me?" As Xiao Feng, still half submerged in the softness of the dream, answered just as honestly. "Would I? Of course I would." The girl stepped forward, wrapped both arms around him, and everything went black. Somewhere far away, a sweet female voice drifted into the edge of his fading consciousness. "Host confirmed. Got a shaping system now officially activated." He woke up the next morning barely coherent, dragging himself toward the bathroom on autopilot. Then that voice came back. "Hello, host. I am the goddess shaping system, here exclusively at your service." Xiao Feng stopped walking. He had heard about systems before, the kind that show up in stories and change everything overnight. Get one, and you basically have a cheat code for life, shooting straight to the top without breaking a sweat. But a goddess shaping system, that was a very specific kind of name. His hand moved before his brain did. He reached down, and the answer hit him immediately. He lunged for the mirror. Staring back at him was a face of flawless, impossible, breathtaking beauty. Smooth fair skin that caught the morning light like it was made of it. Eyes luminous and deep, lips perfectly shaped, brows arching with effortless grace. Xiao Feng shot a massive nosebleed right then and there, passed out cold, and hit the floor. When he came back around, the first thing he did was ask the system the only question that mattered. "Can I change back?" The answer was calm, polite, and absolutely devastating. "Dear host, once bonded, this system has no ability to revert you to male." 30 minutes. That was how long the system gave him to process the single most catastrophic morning of his 20 years of life. He had spent nearly 2 decades as a guy, built every habit and every instinct around that fact, and in a single night, all of it was gone. The blow was real, and it was heavy, and he sat with it for every single one of those 30 minutes. But then again, at least he had a system. Maybe this was actually his ticket to something extraordinary. The 30 minutes ended, and the system delivered its first task without ceremony. Wear the outfit prepared by this system and stroll around Huada Plaza outside campus for 1 hour. Within 3 days. Reward: 1 perfect body wrap. Xiao Feng stared at the outfit the system had conjured into his wardrobe. A white fitted shirt, a pink pleated skirt that stopped just above the knee, and a pair of safety shorts. His face burned scarlet just looking at them. You have to understand what Huada Plaza actually is. 5 universities surround it, and the foot traffic on any given afternoon is absolutely insane. If anyone who knew him spotted him out there in a mini-skirt, he would never be able to show his face again. The rumors would fly, and he would want to rocket straight to another planet and never return. He was not going. That was his final answer. And then the system, very calmly, updated him on the penalty for failure. Fail within 6 to 4 hours, and everyone who knows him finds out he is a girl immediately. His 3 roommates, all of them, the very next moment. Xiao Feng reconsidered his final answer. There was also a mystery reward on the table if he completed the task within 3 hours, stacked on top of the body wrap. He had been wondering about that mystery reward since the moment it was first mentioned, and that curiosity, combined with the threat of total exposure, made the decision for him. He grabbed the bag, tiptoed out of the dormitory, and slipped through the campus gate before anyone could see him. A few minutes later, He arrived at Huada Plaza just as classes were letting out across the nearby universities. Students flooded in from every direction, filling every corner of the plaza with noise and movement. He found the women's restroom, waited for a gap in the crowd, slipped inside, and locked the door. His cheeks were already flushed crimson before he even touched the clothes. He changed into the outfit, stepped up to the sink, and looked into the mirror. He froze completely. The girl looking back at him had a face that could bring kingdoms to their knees. Graceful brows arching over luminous eyes that drew you in without even trying. Red lips barely parted, a perfectly sculpted nose, skin so flawlessly smooth it looked unreal. The miniskirt revealed a pair of long ivory legs that seemed to go on forever. Xiao Feng stood there in absolute silence, staring at himself, nearly giving himself a heart attack from his own reflection. Then he pushed the door open and stepped outside. The stream of people flowing past caught sight of him, and the entire area erupted. Heads turned, conversations stopped mid-sentence, and people genuinely craned their necks to get a second look. She might even top Huada's own campus beauty queen, someone whispered. Xiao Feng kept walking, hard hammering, ignoring every single scorching stare from every direction. He made his way toward the main shopping building at the center of Huada Plaza, and every head on the path swiveled to follow. Nearly 100% of them. Absolutely ridiculous. He had a plan though, practical as ever. The system was footing the bill for the task, so why not spend the hour stocking up on cosmetics and listing them online for resale? He headed straight to a cosmetics store called Genuine Beauty on the 4th floor, apparently the best reviewed shop in the entire plaza. A sales associate in a sleek black ensemble walked over immediately with a warm smile, as Xiao Feng admitted, with cheeks going slightly pink, that he had never really used cosmetics in his life, just face wash. That was the extent of his entire skincare routine. The associate laughed softly and offered to show him around, and that was the moment everything changed. Because across the store, not far from where Xiao Feng was standing, a familiar voice cut through the ambient noise of the shop. Su Bingyan, Huada's campus beauty queen herself, was being cornered by a guy named Zhang Yu, someone who had clearly been following her around for a while. Su Bingyan's expression was ice cold, her patience visibly running out, and Zhang Yu simply did not care. He smiled like nothing was wrong and talked about childhood sweethearts and family connections, and fate. Su Bingyan walked straight past him and into Genuine Beauty to pick up a pre-ordered package set. Zhang Yu followed like a barnacle. Xiao Feng arrived at the counter at almost the exact same moment, and Su Bingyan noticed him immediately. She took one look at the girl standing nearby and could not find a single flaw anywhere on her face, which was an unusual experience for Su Bingyan. There was also something oddly blank about the way this girl was staring back at her, as if she were trying very hard not to react to something. And then Su Bingyan made a decision. She stepped forward, grabbed Xiao Feng's wrist, smiled warmly, and said, "Hey, why didn't you tell me you were already here?" She gave him a small wink and tilted her head almost imperceptibly toward Zhang Yu, standing right beside her. Xiao Feng caught on in an instant. "Yeah, I got here early and figured I'd look around since you weren't here yet. Sorry about that." Bingyan. Su Bingyan was briefly taken aback. How did this girl already know her name? But there was no time to dwell on that. She took the gift bag from the counter associate, and the two of them walked out of the store without sparing Zhang Yu a single glance. Zhang Yu stood there and watched them go, eyes burning, completely outmaneuvered. Once it was clear he had not followed, Su Bingyan gently released the wrist she was holding and turned to look at this strange, beautiful, oddly familiar girl beside her. "How did you know my name?" Xiao Feng smiled. "Of course I know you. You're Huada's campus beauty queen." That soft, airy answer paired with a smile like a warm spring breeze left Su Bingyan momentarily spellbound. They exchanged contacts. Su Bingyan wanted to be friends, insisted on it, and Xiao Feng agreed before his brain fully caught up with what was happening. He walked back to campus in a daze, changed back into his regular appearance thanks to the system's temporary disguise mechanism, and flopped onto his dormitory bed. When he finally checked his phone, there was already a voice message waiting from Su Bingyan, sweet, cheerful, asking if he was free that weekend. And that voice, he thought, the campus forum was absolutely right about it. He tapped back a reply, and just like that, he had a lunch date with the campus beauty queen. That same evening, he called out to the system to claim his rewards. One perfect body wrap, confirmed and delivered to the corner of his wardrobe, and the mystery reward box. which he had been burning to open since the moment it was first mentioned. He requested it immediately. Congratulations, host. You have received Intermediate Instrument Mastery. He stared at the notification. He turned it over in his mind. Intermediate Instrument Mastery. He asked the system if there were higher tiers above it. Advanced and Master level. The system confirmed. Those would come with future tasks. Xiao Feng leaned back and exhaled slowly. Totally worth it. The next morning, he arrived at the restaurant Su Bingyan had suggested, right on the northwest side of Huada Plaza. She was already there waiting by the entrance when he walked up, and the moment she spotted him, a smile broke across her face like sunrise. She waved and reached out to take his hand before he could even finish apologizing. For the extra 3 minutes. You're the guest. Of course I'll wait. And then she leaned in close, face just centimeters away, eyes dancing with amusement. Kinking, why do you blush so easily? The campus beauty queen's face was right there. Her breath was warm against his skin. His heart screamed. His face went even redder. I'm not blushing. Stop saying that. Su Bingyan looked at this adorably flustered girl in front of her and felt something shift in her chest. The way it does when you meet someone you just know you are going to treasure. She took both of Xiao Feng's hands in hers, eyes bright. I really want to be your friend, your bestie. And Xiao Feng, standing there with his feelings in complete chaos, smiled back. Of course, I'd love to be good friends with you, Bingyan. Inside his head, the war between heart and reality was already well underway. If he were still a guy, this would be the dream. But he was a girl now, and this could only ever be a friendship. Still, being besties with Su Bingyan was hardly a bad consolation prize. They ordered an almost reckless amount of food, declared a competition over who could eat more, and spent the next hour filling each other's bowls and arguing cheerfully about nothing important. Su Bingyan kept serving Xiao Feng food with the focused dedication of someone who had decided this person needed looking after. Xiao Feng sat there staring at his overflowing bowl, cheeks twitching, forcing every last bite down. And when Su Bingyan pulled out a tissue and gently dabbed the corners of his lips clean, without a word, Xiao Feng nearly ceased to function entirely, getting his mouth wiped by the campus beauty queen herself. He was probably the only person at Huada who could claim this particular privilege. After lunch, Su Bingyan looked at him with that barely contained excitement in her eyes. Kinking, are you free for the rest of the afternoon? Of course he was free. Of course he said yes. And so they went shopping. To stunning girls walking side by side down the street, long legs moving in perfect sync. Every head they passed turned. Guys nudged each other and gave up immediately, knowing without asking that they were both completely out of reach. Su Bingyan argued that everyone was staring at Kinking, not at her. Xiao Feng argued back that she was the campus beauty queen, so obviously everyone was staring at her. Neither of them won. They argued about it all the way to the women's clothing store Su Bingyan pointed out, with a bounce of excitement. And this, Xiao Feng realized, was the thing about Su Bingyan that no one outside her inner circle ever got to see. That cold, untouchable image her campus reputation was built on had nothing to do with who she actually was. In front of someone she trusted, she was completely, entirely ordinary in the best possible way. Warm, playful, bouncing on her heels over a dress in a store window. In the clothing store, Su Bingyan held a white dress with delicate lace cutout detailing against herself, and looked to Xiao Feng for a verdict. That looks great. Why don't you try it on? Sure. And then Su Bingyan grabbed his wrist and pulled him directly into the fitting room with her. Bingyan, what are you doing? Why are you dragging me in here? The zipper in the back. I'm worried I won't be able to reach it. Please, Kinking, just this once. She turned those sweet coaxing eyes on him and used that voice that melted him to the bone. And he had absolutely no choice but to cave. They squeezed into the narrow fitting room together, and Su Bingyan's scent washed over him instantly. Soft jasmine, refreshing and intoxicating all at once. And then Su Bingyan slipped off her dress without a second thought. Xiao Feng's brain short-circuited. His body was a girl's now, but his mind was still very much not. And this situation was absolutely going to be the end of him. He tore his eyes away and stared at the wall of the fitting room, chanting silently to himself, "Look away, look away, look away." Su Bingyan noticed. Kinking, why is your face so red? We're both girls. Are you seriously getting embarrassed? I'm just like this, okay? Please put the dress on. Su Bingyan burst out laughing at how hopelessly flustered he was. A moment later, after much fabric rustling, She sighed. Kinking, turn around and zip me up. He turned with his eyes pressed shut. Where is it? You silly thing, open your eyes. How are you going to zip anything with your eyes closed? He opened them the tiniest crack. The smooth, flawless expanse of Su Bingyan's back filled his entire field of vision. He carefully reached up, pulled the zipper all the way closed, and stepped back. The moment they emerged from the fitting room, every eye in the store locked onto Su Bingyan. The dress fit her like it had been designed with her specifically in mind. She paid for it without hesitation, reached out to take Xiao Feng's hand, and they left together. They walked back toward campus hand in hand as the afternoon light began to soften. Every guy at Huada dreamed of holding that hand. And here was Xiao Feng, first in line. Sure, it was not exactly the situation he had ever imagined, but a good thing was a good thing. At least he would have something wonderful to look back on. At the campus gate, Su Bingyan pulled him into a sudden, tight hug and whispered against his ear. Kinking, I love you to pieces. Let's be best friends forever, okay? Holding her like that, warm and real, Xiao Feng could not find a single word for how good it felt. Of course, let's hang out whenever we're free. He walked back to the dormitory in a daze, heart full of things he could not name and probably should not feel. But there were practical matters waiting. Back in the room, he checked his phone and found a notification from the second-hand platform. Someone had purchased the cosmetics he had listed. He arranged a courier pickup, shipped the package, and watched over 30,000 yuan land in his account, the most money he had ever had to his name in one place. He was beyond thrilled. He stretched out on his bed, lazily scrolling videos, and then the system's familiar chime cut through the room. Task had arrived. Sign up for the school's music competition and pass the first round. Reward, ultimate vocal skill. He had to compete as a girl. He already knew about the competition, open to all students regardless of major, but requiring an audition first. Everything after the audition was performed in front of the entire school. The intermediate instrument mastery he had earned from the first task was already becoming relevant. He thought it through carefully and settled on the piano. Sitting at a piano, the audience only ever saw his side profile. The chances of being recognized were low, safest option by a wide margin. But then a different problem surfaced, and he groaned and collapsed back onto the bed. Every official record at Huada listed him as male. He pulled up the registration form the class rep had shared and read through it with growing relief. Real names were optional, majors were optional. Whatever name got announced on stage was entirely up to the competitor. Stage name only. He could work with that. But as he turned the whole situation over in his mind, one bigger conclusion became unavoidable. Staying in the dormitory, his secret was going to come out sooner or later. Li Chang had already noticed his skin looked different. Hu Lei had already commented on the way he smelled. It was only a matter of time before one of them put the pieces together. He needed to move out. Monday morning arrived, and Xiao Feng hummed quietly to himself all the way to the arts office to register for the competition. The teacher was not there yet, but someone else was. Su Bingyan looked up from her seat the second she heard her name, and when she realized it was Kinky walking through the door, she leapt out of her chair and threw her arms around him in a giant bear hug. Is this my favorite Kinky? How did you know I was here? Did you come all this way just to see me? A few days together had taught Xiao Feng a lot about who Su Bingyan really was. The whole cold on the outside, warm on the inside thing had become completely familiar to him by now, and a hug from her, honestly, was never something to complain about. I'm here to sign up for the music competition with Teacher Wang. Su Bingyan's eyes went wide. The school music competition? What a coincidence. I'm handling registrations for the student council. Teacher Wang asked me to take care of it. Really? That's perfect. Sign me up then, Bingyan. She handed him the form. 2 minutes later, she looked it over and raised an eyebrow. Kinky, you're not using your real name. You're leaving the major and department blank, too? Low-key is better. Besides, Xiao works as a stage name on its own. It's your competition, your call. She paused. I already knew you were an art specialty student, but I had no idea you played piano. That's impressive. Just a hobby, he said quickly and moved on before she could ask more. Speaking of which, now that you're here, I actually wanted to talk to you about something. What is it? I've been thinking about renting a place off campus. I found a 2-bedroom apartment. I just need a roommate. Su Bingyan went very still, and then her face transformed. Moving together? That's exactly what I've been thinking about. She had been wanting to move off campus since her first year, and now here was Kinky handing her the answer. I've been thinking about moving out too. When can you take me to see the place? If it looks good, I could move in within a couple of days. I'll take you tomorrow evening. Xiao Feng left the office walking back along the tree-lined campus path with his head still floating. Just like that, he was about to become Su Bingyan's roommate. Just the two of them in one apartment. If he were still a guy, every man on campus would die of envy if word got out. He had also noticed something else over the past few days. His instincts and habits had been shifting, quietly but consistently, more toward thinking like a girl. The way he moved, the way he talked with Bingyan, all of it. The only place he still consciously held himself to his old habits was in the dormitory, where he could not afford to be found out. That evening at 10 to 6, the cups of milk tea in hand, he arrived at the campus gate to wait for Su Bingyan. He had barely picked up his phone when a pair of hands covered his eyes from behind. Guess who? That sweet, soft voice. He would know it anywhere. Bingyan, why are you always so playful? He held out the taro pudding milk tea and watched her face light up. Kinky, how did you know this is my favorite? I noticed both times you bought milk tea the other day. It was always this one. Su Bingyan stared at him for a moment. Kinky, you're incredible. She led him into the residential complex like she already knew the layout by heart, which she did, because she had already signed the lease the day before. She had just not found a roommate yet until today. The apartment was small, but beautifully put together. Cozy in a way that felt intentional rather than cramped. One bathroom, a large sofa, a compact kitchen, a balcony, and everything in between. The landlord was a young woman whose father had bought the place for her years ago, and who had recently married and moved in with her husband. She rented it out rather than sell, and Su Bingyan had snapped it up the moment she saw the listing. 2,000 yuan a month total, 1,000 each, below market rate for the area. When can you move in? Su Bingyan watched him with barely contained excitement. Tomorrow, if that's okay. Which dorm room are you in? I'll come help you. His heart lurched. No, I don't have much. I can handle it on my own. The thought of Su Bingyan showing up at his dormitory room was enough to send his pulse. In a full panic mode, there was absolutely no way he could let that happen. After a busy day of packing and moving, Xiao Feng was officially out of the dormitory and living with Su Bingyan. The two of them together in one apartment, just the two of them. And here is the part no one expected. Living with Su Bingyan was nothing like the carefully composed, coolly poised campus beauty queen persona that Huada's entire student body had built her into. It was something messier and warmer and infinitely more dangerous. To Xiao Feng's already fragile composure, a few days into their new living arrangement, over 3,000 yuan landed in his account from the cosmetics sale, a 4-digit number starting with 4. He sent Bingyan her share of the rent and was mid-sentence when he turned around and saw something he absolutely should not have seen. Su Bingyan had pulled up her shirt to fan her midriff in the heat. Before the air conditioning kicked in, he spun around so fast he nearly tripped over himself. Bingyan, what are you doing? Put your shirt back on. I'm just hot. Besides, Kinky, we're both girls. Is it really worth getting that red over? Even if we're both girls, we should have some sense of decorum. Su Bingyan's lips pushed out into a full pout and she turned her head away, ignoring him entirely. Full tsundere mode activated. Xiao Feng thought for exactly 1 second, softly cleared his throat, and spoke in his quietest, most apologetic voice. Bingyan, please don't be mad. I really didn't mean it that way. You got the wrong idea. She surrendered instantly. His soft, sweet voice melted her on the spot every single time, and he was beginning to notice that pattern and quietly file it away for future use. Evenings in the apartment had a rhythm of their own. Delivery food ordered in quantities neither of them could finish. Leftover burgers and chicken wraps sitting untouched on the table. Debates about whose fault it was for ordering too much. Showering schedules negotiated with the careful diplomacy of two people who were both trying to be considerate. And then one night, the bathroom door finally opened after 30 full minutes of running water. Su Bingyan walked out wearing the most adorable cartoon Pikachu pajamas Xiao Feng had ever seen in his life. He stared, completely thrown off. Nothing about those pajamas belonged on the same person as the cool, sophisticated campus beauty queen image he had grown up seeing from across the university. What's wrong, Kinky? Do I have something on my face? Those pajamas really don't match your image. I could be both, actually, cool and sweet, right? Kinking? She asked him to blow dry her hair. He plugged in the hairdryer with practiced ease, lifted her glossy dark hair with one hand, and switched it on, a low steady hum filling the quiet apartment. Su Bingyan closed her eyes with an expression of pure contentment. She did not know why exactly, but being around Kinking always made her feel this way. A specific kind of ease she could not quite put into words. A sense of safety that felt different from anything else she had known. When the dryer clicked off as Xiao Feng made to step away, Su Bingyan, still seated in front of him, reached back and wrapped both arms quietly around his waist. She pressed her face against his side and murmured softly, "Can I just stay like this for a little while?" Xiao Feng's cheeks went warm. He did not pull away. He just softly hummed his agreement. The apartment felt completely quiet, nothing but the gentle sound of two people breathing. About 2 minutes later, Su Bingyan reluctantly let go. Her eyes were slightly reddened at the edges. "Sorry, Kinking. First I made you dry my hair, then I just grabbed you out of nowhere. I'm being overdramatic." Xiao Feng sat down beside her and looked at her carefully. "What's going on, Bingyan? Did something sad come to mind just now?" She sniffled quietly. "Kinking, I think of you as a real friend, and I don't want to hide things from you." She forced a smile, and the more he looked at it, the more it ached. He reached over and wrapped an arm around her shoulder, gently guiding her head to rest against his chest. "It's okay, Bingyan. You can talk to me. I might not be able to fix anything, but I can listen. I'm here." She held on tightly for a long moment, then laughed softly against him. "Thank you, Kinking. I just can't talk about it yet. Old memories hit me for a moment, but I'm okay now, really." He looked at her for a moment longer that was strictly necessary. "Good. As long as you're okay." Later that night, with the lights low and a tablet propped between them on the sofa, they started a horror movie. Su Bingyan had declared she suddenly felt like watching one, and with Kinking beside her, she felt brave enough. She was wrong about that. They lasted approximately 12 minutes before the apartment filled with the overlapping screams of two girls. "Bingyan, I'm terrified. Can we please stop watching?" Yes, let's stop." Su Bingyan slammed the tablet off like it had personally offended her. They sat there side by side for a solid 5 minutes recovering, then spent the next 30 watching funny videos to cleanse their minds. By the time they finally said good night and retreated to their separate rooms, Xiao Feng lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling with a smile he could not quite control. Moving out had its perks. No more whispering, no more performing, no more pretending. He could just live. He could just be. And there was something about that small, ordinary freedom that felt more like arriving somewhere than anything he had experienced in a very long time. But while Xiao Feng was settling into the warm rhythm of apartment life with Su Bingyan, something else was quietly building in the background. The music competition registration was in. The school-wide event, open to every student at Huada, was drawing closer, and Xiao Feng, who had spent years with no musical ability whatsoever, now carried intermediate instrument mastery in his hands like a card he had not yet played. The piano had been his choice for a clear strategic reason. Seated at the keys, the audience only ever saw his side profile. The chances of anyone connecting the elegant female pianist on stage to the male student in their lecture hall were low. Stage name Xiao, no major, no department listed. The perfect cover. The only thing left was to actually perform. The morning after the horror movie incident, Xiao Feng emerged from his room to find Su Bingyan already in the kitchen. The apartment smelled incredible. "Kinking, it's already 8:30 and you're only just up. Go wash your face and brush your teeth. Breakfast is ready." He laughed awkwardly and hurried to the bathroom. 5 minutes later, he stood in front of the coffee table staring at a spread that had absolutely no business existing on a Monday morning. Scallion oil noodles, beautifully made, still steaming. "Bingyan, you made all of this?" "I was up past 7 to make it. Pretty impressive, right?" Su Bingyan smiled brightly, eyes curving into crescents. He took one bite and gave her a thumbs up so enthusiastic it bordered on embarrassing. "This is amazing. Way better than anything at the school cafeteria." "Of course it is. Look who made it." 10 minutes later, every dish on the table had been finished, and Xiao Feng sank into the sofa with a satisfied sigh that came from somewhere deep. "Bingyan, your cooking is seriously incredible. Glad you like it. If you do, I can make it for you every single day." He started to protest, and she waved him off. Don't worry about it. We can go grocery shopping together every day. Can't let that refrigerator go to waste." Her voice went soft and wistful. "Just imagine it. Our cozy little place, the two of us picking up groceries every day, cooking together, eating together." She paused. "Doesn't that sound perfect?" Xiao Feng went quiet. The picture she was painting stirred something in him that he did not have clean words for. If he were still a guy and a girl like Su Bingyan said something like that, he would be completely over the moon. But no matter how much he let himself feel it, this was a friendship. That was all this could be. "What's wrong? Why did you go quiet?" "Nothing. I just drifted off for a second. But honestly, Bingyan, what you described does sound really nice, warm, and wonderful." She smiled, satisfied. That's the kind of simple life a lot of people dream about. No worries, no stress, just living freely. That's what real life should feel like. Neither of them said anything for a moment after that. The apartment held that comfortable quiet that only exists between two people who have already decided to trust each other. And then the system chimed in. Out of nowhere, mid-morning, mid-warmth, mid-everything. "Congratulations, host." Hidden task triggered. Su Bingyan had invited him to sit in on one of her afternoon classes. The system wanted him to accept. Reward, leg charm stat +1. He accepted, obviously. "Congratulations, host. Choice confirmed. Leg charm stat has been upgraded. Kinking, you have class this afternoon." The professor canceled. "I'm free. Then come to class with me." 20 minutes until class started. He had not changed yet. Su Bingyan looked him up and down and declared he did not need to change at all. "With legs like yours, Kinking, why would you cover them up?" He gave up arguing and they headed out, walking across the Huada campus with Su Bingyan at his side. Xiao Feng could feel eyes tracking them from every direction. He instinctively lowered his head a little, angling away from anyone who might know him. They slipped into the classroom and took seats near the back. It was an elective Su Bingyan had just signed up for, not one of her major courses. The moment the rest of the class noticed who had just walked in, the room tilted. "Wait, is that Su Bingyan? She really lives up to being Wada's campus beauty queen. Who's the girl next to her though? I've never seen her before. Also gorgeous." Beautiful girls only hang out with beautiful people. Every stare in the room landed on Xiao Feng at once, and he squirmed, raising one hand to shield his face from a clear sightline. He was just here to sit in. Nobody should be paying this much attention to him. With 2 minutes until class started, he kept his head down and scrolled through his phone. Su Bingyan leaned over every so often to whisper something in his ear, her breath warm against the side of his face. The two of them smiling and chatting softly in the back of the classroom, leaving who knows how many students in the rows ahead of them completely spellbound. Back at the apartment that evening, the rhythm of the day settled into something easy and habitual already. Dinner planned, complaints about the temperature, the comfortable low-stakes negotiation of two people learning to share a space. Xiao Feng was beginning to understand something that had not been obvious to him before. The system had not just changed his body, it had dropped him into a life that was slowly, quietly reshaping every part of who he was. And the strange thing was, he was not sure anymore how much he minded. But no matter how settled the apartment felt, the competition was still coming, and with it, the need to perform in front of the entire school as a girl he had only recently become. The audition came on a clear afternoon, held in one of Wada's practice halls, closed to outside observers. Xiao Feng arrived early, sat down at the piano in the empty room, and placed both hands over the keys. The intermediate mastery the system had given him was real, and it was there, settled in his fingers like something he had always known, not borrowed, not performed, just there. He played through the piece once from start to finish, quietly, for no one, and then the panel walked in. 3 judges, notepads in hand, taking their seats with the practiced neutrality of people who had heard many auditions. Xiao Feng took a breath, straightened on the bench, and played. The piece moved through the room like something that had always belonged there. Every note landed exactly where it needed to. No hesitation, no stumble, no moment where the music second-guessed itself. When he finished, the room held its silence for exactly 1 beat longer than it needed to. One of the judges wrote something, passed the notepad to the next, and all 3 nodded. Cleared. First round. Confirmed. He walked out of the practice hall into the afternoon air with his pulse still thrumming, and the system's cheerful congratulations already sounding in his ear. Task 2, in progress. First round, passed. The ultimate vocal skill reward waited at the other end of this. He just had to make it to the stage. What he did not know yet was that someone else had been watching the sign-up list. Back in the arts office, Su Bingyan had seen the form he submitted. Stage name Xiao Piano, no department. She had not pressed him about it that day, but she had quietly kept it in mind. And Su Bingyan, it turned out, was very good at connecting dots when she had reason to. The days leading up to the first round of the competition settled into a careful double life. Inside the apartment, warm and easy, grocery runs with Bingyan, cooking together, arguing about delivery portions. Outside the apartment, navigating Huada's campus as a face no one could quite place, drawing stares from every direction. On campus as his male self, sitting through lectures with his head down and his secret intact. And somewhere in between all of that, practicing. The competition's first round was a full-stage performance, the entire school body in attendance. His side profile behind the keys, the stage name Xiao, and underneath all of that, the real stakes, one task left, one reward waiting, and a secret that could unravel everything if a single person looked too closely. The night before the performance, he sat in his room in the apartment and went over the piece one final time on his phone, tracing the rhythm with his fingertip against the desk. From the living room, he could hear Bingyan watching something on her tablet, the soft murmur of dialogue and the occasional short laugh. Normal, warm, safe. He exhaled slowly. He just had to get through tomorrow. The day of the first round arrived with the kind of bright, indifferent sky that paid no attention to how much was riding on the afternoon. Students filtered into the main auditorium in waves, filling every seat from front to back. A school-wide event meant exactly that. Every student body, every faculty, every corner of Huada represented. Xiao Feng waited in the wings backstage with the other performers, dressed in the simple, clean ensemble the system had once again quietly provided. Pale and composed from the outside. Internally, nothing resembling calm. He scanned the backstage area out of habit and spotted, across the wings, a familiar profile. Su Bingyan, standing with a small student council clipboard, checking something off a list. She had mentioned she was helping manage the event for the council. He had known she would be somewhere in the building. He had not quite prepared for her to be standing close enough to make eye contact. He angled himself away, keeping his head at the angle that made recognition hardest. And then his name, or rather his stage name, was called. Yeah? He walked out onto the stage. The auditorium was full, row upon row of faces stretching back into the light. The piano sat waiting at center stage, bench pulled out, keys catching the overhead lighting. He crossed the stage without rushing, settled onto the bench, positioned his hands, and did not look at the audience. He looked at the keys, and then he played. The music filled the auditorium completely, not loudly, not aggressively, but with the kind of quiet authority that made the room lean forward without realizing it. Rows of students, who had been half watching, checking their phones, whispering to their neighbors, went still. The piece moved through its pacing without hurry, built where it needed to build, stepped back where it needed to breathe. And when the final note rang out and faded into the air above the auditorium, the silence that followed lasted a full 3 seconds before the applause started. Not polite applause, the real kind. He stood up from the bench, turned toward the audience for exactly as long as courtesy required, and walked off the stage. In the wings, one of the other performers exhaled beside him and said, "That was incredible." He nodded once and moved deeper into the backstage corridor, heart still hammering. The system was quiet for exactly 30 seconds, and then it spoke. "Congratulations, host. Task to complete. First round passed. Ultimate vocal skill unlocked." He stood alone in the corridor for a moment. He let out a slow breath. Ultimate vocal skill, on top of intermediate instrument mastery. He was building something piece by piece, reward by reward, without quite being able to see yet what the finished shape of it would look like. But that was when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned. Su Bingyan was standing at the entrance to the corridor, clipboard lowered, looking at him with an expression he had not seen on her face before. Not the warm, open look she gave him at breakfast, not the playful grin from the nights that argued about delivery orders. This was something quieter, more careful. "That was you, wasn't it?" she said. "The performance just now, stage name Xiao." Xiao Feng held completely still. "Bingyan, I saw the form you submitted. No department, no real name, piano." She tilted her head slightly. "And I know your playing style, kinking, I've heard you practice through the apartment wall." The silence between them stretched long enough to become something. "Why didn't you just tell me?" He searched for the right answer and settled on the closest thing to honest he could manage. "I didn't want the attention. I just wanted to play." Su Bingyan looked at him for another moment, and then something in her expression softened. "Kinking, you're ridiculous, you know that," she said. But the way she said it had no edge in it at all. "You were incredible up there. You know that, right?" The whole auditorium felt it. His cheeks flushed before he could stop them. "Don't make it a big deal." "It is a big deal." She took a step forward. "But fine. Your secret is safe with me, Xiao." She emphasized the stage name with a small, satisfied smile that she clearly enjoyed, and turned back toward the main corridor. "Come on. They're announcing results soon. Let's go." He followed her out of the backstage corridor and back into the light and noise of the main event. And for the first time since all of this began, standing in the middle of Huada's auditorium with Su Bingyan walking just ahead of him, he felt something that was not anxiety or performance or carefully managed concealment. He felt, very simply, like himself, whoever that was becoming. The results were announced before the end of the afternoon. Stage name Xiao, piano. First round, passed with distinction. The murmur that moved through the auditorium at the announcement was immediate and curious. Who was Xiao? Which department? Which year? The questions moved through the crowd like a wave finding no shore. Nobody had the answer, which meant everybody kept asking. From her seat near the front row, Su Bingyan heard the murmur swell and said nothing. She glanced sideways to where Xiao Feng sat beside her, head angled down, face carefully composed. She pressed her lips together and said nothing. That evening, walking back to the apartment in the warm late afternoon light, neither of them brought it up. Su Bingyan hummed something under her breath. Xiao Feng walked beside her, shoulder to shoulder, close enough to feel the warmth of her presence. At the apartment door, while Bingyan fumbled with the key, she said without turning around, "I'm really glad you're my roommate, Kinking." He looked at the back of her head and felt the words land somewhere they should not have, somewhere warm and complicated and very inconvenient. "I'm glad to, Bingyan." The door opened and they went inside together, and the small apartment received them the way it always did, like something they had already decided they belonged there. That night, lying in the quiet of his room with the system's latest notification sitting unread in the corner of his awareness, Xiao Feng stared at the ceiling. He thought about the past weeks. He had gone to sleep a heartbroken guy who had just lost his campus beauty queen girlfriend. He had woken up as someone entirely different, not just in body, not just in the way the world looked at him now, but in the slower, quieter ways that he could not have predicted on that first devastating morning. He thought about the version of himself that had stood at that dorm room mirror, shot a nosebleed, and passed out cold. That person had been terrified of walking through Huada Plaza in a mini skirt. He thought about the girl in the cosmetic store who had made friends with the campus beauty queen, just to help her shake off a persistent admirer. He thought about the apartment, taro pudding milk tea, Pikachu pajamas, the sound of a hairdryer in a quiet room, and two girls screaming through 12 minutes of a horror film, before agreeing unanimously to stop. He thought about Su Bingyan's arms around his waist and the way she had said, "Can I just stay like this for a little while?" And he thought about what the system had given him and what he had earned, and what was still waiting ahead, because the competition was not over. The first round was cleared, the reward was claimed, but there were further rounds still coming, and with every stage the audience would grow, the scrutiny would sharpen, and the distance between who Xiao Feng was on stage and who he was on the student record would grow harder to maintain. There was also the matter of what was building in the apartment between himself and Su Bingyan, something neither of them had named and both of them were quietly, consistently circling. The system had delivered on every promise it made so far. Intermediate instrument mastery, ultimate vocal skill, a body that stopped traffic outside Huada Plaza and made every eye in a lecture hall turn. None of that changed the central fact that Xiao Feng was living a double life. That could not hold its shape forever. Sooner or later, something was going to give. But sitting here in this moment, in this small, warm apartment that smelled faintly of scallion oil and Su Bingyan's jasmine, Xiao Feng found that the fear that had been so consuming on that first morning had changed into something else. Not certainty, not confidence in any clean, uncomplicated sense. Something closer to readiness. He had a system, and the system had tasks, and every task he completed handed him something real. He had a friend, And the friend turned out to be the kind of person that campus rumors are entirely unequipped to describe. And he had himself, whoever that was in the process of becoming, which was more than he had expected to have when he opened his eyes that first morning and found a stranger in the mirror. He reached over and tapped the system notification open. No new task yet, just a quiet confirmation. Task to complete. Current skills, intermediate instrument mastery, ultimate vocal skill. Next task pending. He set down his phone and folded his arms behind his head, staring up at the ceiling in the dark. From Su Bingyan's room, through the thin apartment wall, he could hear the faint sound of her breathing, settled and slow. She was already asleep. He thought about how she had said nothing when the auditorium buzzed with questions about who Xiao was, how she had just glanced sideways at him and pressed her lips together and kept his secret without being asked to, how she had said, walking back in the evening light, "I'm really glad you're my roommate." That was the moment he understood something that he had been trying not to understand for a while now. Whatever this was between them, it was already past the point of being simple. The question was not whether his feelings had gotten complicated. The question was what came next. And the answer to that, like everything else since the night the goddess-shaping system activated in a dream, was something only time and the next task would reveal. But there was one thing Xiao Feng was certain about. Lying here in the quiet of the apartment he now shared with Su Bingyan, he had broken up with campus beauty queen Su Bingyan as a guy who thought that was the bravest thing he had done in a long time. He had walked into Huada Plaza in a pink mini-skirt and nearly given himself a heart attack. In a bathroom mirror, he had played piano in front of an entire school auditorium without anyone knowing who he was. And he had somehow, in the middle of all of it, become the person that Su Bingyan trusted most. Not the campus beauty queen and some guy from her past. Something entirely new. He closed his eyes. Outside the apartment window, the city moved on the way it always did, indifferent and continuous. Inside, the hairdryer sat on the little side table, where he had left it after drying her hair. The remaining scallion oil noodles from the morning were long gone. The Pikachu pajamas were folded neatly over the back of Su Bingyan's door, visible through the narrow gap. Small, ordinary details of a life that had not existed 3 weeks ago. That was the part no story about systems and rewards and tasks ever quite managed to capture. It was not the skills that changed him. It was the in-between moments. The taro pudding remembered, the zipper pulled closed with his eyes barely open, the arm wrapped around a shoulder when someone needed it, the choice, made over and over again without even noticing, to show up. He exhaled one last time and let his eyes close. The system was quiet. The apartment was warm. Su Bingyan was sleeping through the wall. And Xiao Feng, the boy who had woken up as a girl and spent 3 weeks quietly becoming someone worth knowing, finally let himself rest. Not because everything was resolved. Not because the secret was safe or the competition was won or the feelings made sense. But because some things do not need to be resolved to be good. Some things are simply what they are. A small apartment. A system with tasks still waiting. A roommate who keeps your secrets without being asked. And somewhere underneath all of it, growing slowly and without permission, the shape of something neither of them had a name for yet. Outside, the city lights glowed soft against the window. A new day was already gathering itself on the other side of the dark. What it would ask of him, he did not yet know. What he would be capable of answering, he could not have said. But he was here. He was ready. And for now, that was enough. The system had dropped him into a life he had not chosen, with a face he had not planned, and a friend he had not expected. And somehow, and probably, all three of those things had turned out to be exactly what he needed. Not the campus beauty girlfriend he had walked away from. Not the ordinary college life he had been living before that night. Something harder to name and more difficult to lose. Something real. He thought about the girl in the dream, the one who had asked if he found her beautiful. The one whose smile had curved upward like she already knew the answer to every question she was about to ask. He thought about what she had said. That sweet voice at the edge of consciousness on the very first night. Host confirmed. Got a shaping system now officially activated. At the time, those words had felt like the end of everything he had been. Now they felt like the beginning of something he had not had a word for yet. Not a curse, not a cheat code. A becoming. Slow, strange, and entirely his own. Or hers, depending on how you looked at it, depending on which mirror you were standing in front of. He smiled at the ceiling in the dark. 3 weeks ago, he had passed out cold from a nosebleed in a dormitory bathroom. Tonight he was falling asleep in a warm apartment with the city outside the window, and a friend sleeping through the wall. That was not nothing. That was, in fact, quite a lot. The system had one more truth built quietly into everything it had given him so far. One that showed up not in any reward box or task notification, but in the accumulation of small choices made across 3 weeks of ordinary days. That strength is not one thing. It is not a level number or a skill tier or a stat that gets upgraded. It is the capacity to keep showing up, to keep choosing presence over comfort, honesty over safety, connection over isolation, even when you are terrified, even when the mirror shows you someone you do not yet recognize, even when the person beside you is sleeping peacefully and has no idea how tangled your feelings have become. Especially then, the city outside softened. The light through the window dimmed to something gentle. In the quiet of the small apartment, the people breathed in the same rhythm, separated by a thin wall and 1,000 things neither of them had said yet. Whatever came next would come. New tasks, next rounds, new complications. The slow and inevitable moment when all the things not yet said would have to be. But tonight, there was only this. The warmth of a place that had become home faster than either of them had planned. The quiet that exists between the people who trust each other. The boy who became a girl and found, somewhere in the middle of all that impossible change, that he had also found himself, not despite everything that happened.